Hello, my name is Nadine and welcome to Hop Along Studio. In today's project, I want to share with you some different ways you can use acrylics in your creative projects. Today I'll be focusing on fluid and high flow acrylics, but you could also use inks for this project. You can also look at watering down your acrylic paints for this, but I wanted to show you a few interesting techniques using these high flow and fluid acrylics. So the first part of this technique is very easy. I'm going to spritz my watercolor paper with a little bit of water, and I'm going to add some of the high flow acrylic. The beauty of high flow acrylic is it's highly pigmented. So even though I'm only using 4 drops, it's going to spread a lot on the page. And because of the nature of the high flow acrylics, the color does spread really, really nicely. And I'm just going to close my page. You can see by doing that, and even as I'm adding in the paper towel, it's actually adding some fun texture onto the page. So I'm just going to let that dry, and then I'm going to add another layer. Just want to add some color, and again, close that again. Squish it around if you want. The reason I like using high flows is because they're pretty much a straight pigment. They are the paint with the least amount of other things added to it. So for example, heavy body paint has other mediums added to it to give it that thicker feel. Well, the high flow acrylics is basically just the straight pigment. I like using a pouring medium. I like using it in a variety of different things just because of the fact that you do get that really intense color and you don't have to worry about using so much paint to get a similar effect. Got a little bit different direction with this. I'm gonna add some nickel azo gold. This is probably one of my favorite colors to use. It just has a really interesting undertone, and you can see just even as it spreads, there's some very cool things that it does. Again, just fold that on over. And this is where it's good to have a piece of parchment paper or a silicone mat or something to just try to protect your surfaces a bit, and then just use a paper towel just to wipe the edges. Keeps us from getting too messy. And I've probably gone a little too crazy with the colors on this. You should probably stick to only 3 colors, but I'm going to go a little bit crazier with this. I'm going to add a little bit of indigo. And I think that kind of helps balance that out a little bit more. I found it got a little too yellow from the nickel azo gold, so by adding in a little bit of that blue, that just seemed to tone that down a little bit. And some of these have a few more spots just because of the fact that I didn't spread it nearly as much, but you could go really, really light with this. You could add 1 drop, spread it across the whole page. There's a lot of different ways you can just get the level of intensity that you're looking for this project. So originally I was going to do the next layer of this project in black, but because I've done such a dark background, I'm going to change my mind and move to some titanium white. And this is high flow titanium white. So what I like to do is take one of these little needle nose bottles, add a little bit of paint, and decant it from the high flow bottle because this doesn't have a very thin nib. I want something that I could write with. And what I find is, even though these ones do have a spot where you could put a little needle in and it's supposed to keep them sealed, I find that they do dry out over time. So I tend to only use what I need and then I clean out the bottle. And when you're writing with this, you can't write really small. So think about using slightly bigger strokes, or find a much more thin needle-nosed bottle that will let you write a little bit smaller. And you could do this in an acrylic pen, but what I find is just the whole process of loosening up and just using this type of process gives you different effects than what I would get by having something that's a little bit more perfect looking. So I love the pen, but it does give you a lot of control, and sometimes you want to have a little less control. And I originally was encouraged to try this technique by Kathy McDuff. She runs one of the creative journaling classes that I have joined. And I love that she helps me try different things that get me kind of out of my own art space and into trying different techniques or things I've seen, but I haven't actually tried myself. I've seen lots of stuff with needle-nosed bottles. I just never have used it in my own creative practice. So now I'm drawing a little coneflower here. It should actually be a little bit more high here in the center. And I'm going to start adding in some leaves. And coneflower leaves are really interesting because I like the shape of them and just the different ways they look in the garden. Where I live, we don't really have the season to really get fantastic coneflowers, which is probably why I like it when they actually do bloom, just because it's something I don't usually get to see. And then sometimes they have these veins along the side here, so I'm just drawing those in. Again, it takes a little bit of practice to figure out how much pressure to put on the bottle to get really good results. And in this case, I want to show that this is an overlapping leaf, so I'm just adding in some texture lines. And with drawing a coneflower, again, you're looking for just basic shapes and then just adding in some of those extra marks that gives that sense of leaf. You always want to make them thicker at this end and thinner at this end. It takes a little bit of doing to get the right amount of control, just to get the petals in the shape that you want them to be. But I think the choice of using the white paint over the black was a good choice. Because my black paint is a fluid paint, I tend to add a little bit of water to that particular one for adding it to the page, where the high flow, you can basically just add it straight into the bottle and use it. Because a high flow can be used, I believe, in airbrushes. So the paint is designed already with this type of work in mind. And because every comb flower seems to always have a bee on it, I'm just going to add a little bee in my picture here. See how accurate I can make it. Last time I did this particular one, I did do it on a much larger surface, so this is a little bit harder to do. It's not meant to have super detailed subject matter, but I'm trying because why not try to push yourself a little bit in your art. It's not a super realistic bee there, but it'll do. And I put my hand in the paint, and that's one thing you need to be really careful of, is not to put your hand down on the page, because you're going to put things in it like this. And I did have a thought that I wanted to share today. The reason I wanted to do this page is the one thought I've had recently is the idea that everything is figure outable. And why I want to do this page about everything being figure outable is that it really is. I've been finding that over the last few years, just as I've been trying to adjust to learning how to do YouTube and just changing a lot of my personal career path. I've realized that there's so many things that I need to learn, and that it is all figure outable. It doesn't necessarily make it easy, but it is figure outable. And this is something I've been really trying to tell myself as I've been learning, because it's so easy to go, I can't do that. That's really hard. I'm not sure even how to go about that. But it's all figure outable. You might need to take a course. You might need to find someone who can help you. It might mean you need to do a lot of reading, but you can figure it out. We are capable of figuring things out if we're willing to take the time and the energy to try to understand it. That's something I really wanted to share with you today, is that maybe in art journaling or maybe in your creative practice, you're finding that certain things are hard. You're really struggling with something. It's not working out. The page doesn't look the way you want it to look, and it's driving you crazy. And I've had lots of those moments in my creative practice where I'm looking at this going like, why am I still running with this? This is so hard. But instead, it's taking the time to ask yourself, how much do I want this? Is it figure outable? What do I need to do to figure this out? And it's just giving ourselves that place of choice when it comes down to what we learn, and figuring out what we are passionate about and what we're willing to take the time to figure out. So I hope you've learned something new about painting with fluid acrylics in the art journal. As you can see, that fluid acrylic paints, they're often known for being used in pouring medium, but they're not the only way you can use them. That's actually the original way that I started using fluid acrylics, but by far I've started using them in so many different ways in my art journal projects. So definitely give these a try. The pigment makes them amazing, great colors. I would really suggest picking up a few for your art journal. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you could like it, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you have any questions about how to use fluid or high flow acrylics, or if you just want to comment on today's video, please leave a comment below. I would love to start a conversation with you. If you're interested in any of the art supplies I used today, I've included the supply list below. And that does include affiliate links, but that means that I do get a small commission at no cost to yourself. And that's just another way you can support this channel. And if you'd like to see another video about acrylic painting in the art journal, click here. This is a tutorial I did where I went over some of my top tips for getting really great results with paint in the art journal. So I hope you have a really great week, that you take some time for some personal self-care, and I will see you next time.